Welcome to the Dr. Wyatt Show podcast. For developing a long-lasting, happy relationship is the status symbol to achieve, and following my tools is one path to help get you there. I'm your host, Dr. Wyatt Fisher, a licensed psychologist specializing in couples counseling. If you want to improve your communication so that you have more love and less conflicts, download my app today, Keep the Glow, KTG, wherever you get your apps, and start with 2 weeks free. Also, be sure to subscribe so you're notified of future episodes, and follow me on social at Dr. Wyatt Fisher. I invite you to join me in my free masterclass September 4th at 12 noon or 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on how to rebuild your marriage in 90 days. In this masterclass, we're going to cover top causes of communication problems, top causes of resentments, top causes of emotional and sexual problems, and top solutions to reduce conflicts and increase your love. That applies to everybody. And so you better attend. I'm doing this for you. It's free. It's September 4th, and it's how to rebuild your marriage in 90 days. To sign up, go to the show notes, click the link, and I hope to see you there. So today I'm going to talk about 6 mistakes to avoid in marriage counseling. It's important to go through these 6 mistakes because we don't know what to do or not to do as a client if you're going to see a marriage counselor or a coach. I have experience on this from 2 fronts. As you know, I'm a marriage therapist myself. I've been in private practice since 2004, and I see roughly 15 couples every single week in my practice. So I have a lot of experience sitting in the counselor's seat, watching couples make mistakes. I also have experience being in the client seat because when my wife and I were going through winter several years ago, many years ago now, thankfully, we went to see multiple therapists over 5 years. And in those 5 years, I had a lot of experience sitting in the client seat thinking that shouldn't happen, or we shouldn't have done this, or I shouldn't have said that. And I got a firsthand experience, a real world experience of being in the client seat because I was the client as well for about 5 years, my wife and I both. So when I share these 6 mistakes, this is not all inclusive. There's other mistakes you have to watch out for, but these are some of the top mistakes to avoid in marriage counseling that stood out to me. Number 1 is you want to avoid meeting alone with your therapist, your marriage therapist, unless they are very good about having an even amount of alone time with you and your partner. So when I work with a couple, for example, sometimes I do have individual sessions with each partner, but I make sure it's at the same amount of sessions. So for example, if I'm going to meet with partner A for a 45-minute session, I tell them I have to meet with partner B on the next session for 45 minutes to balance out the rapport. And that's really important because one of the hardest things as a marriage therapist is constantly keeping your alliance even between both partners. And that's why you never want to start meeting with one spouse individually while you're still working with the couple, because before long, you're going to create more of an alliance with that one partner, and then it's going to feel like 2 against 1 in the counseling room. So whenever you see a marriage therapist, make sure you or your partner are not having alone time with that therapist that's not even, because that's going to throw off the alliance. And that brings me to point number 2. Do not bring your partner to your therapist. That is going to be an unfair advantage right out of the gate. Because think about it. If you've been working with your therapist for a while, they have your back. They've been hearing your side of the story. They know your frustrations. You've vented to them about your marriage. You've vented to them about your relationship and your partner and how you're unhappy and all these things. And then you say, could I bring my partner to some sessions? And they say, sure. You bring your partner to the session, and what's the therapist going to do? They're going to side with you because you are their client. They have your back. They know your story. They've seen your frustrations. And so your partner is going to get ganged up on very quickly, and then they're not going to want to come back. So if you've been seeing a therapist one-on-one and you want to start marriage counseling, find a separate therapist for that. That will keep the alliance clean, and then neither of you will be ganged up on. Number 3rd mistake to avoid in marriage counseling is blindsiding your partner in session. This happens, and it happens for understandable reasons. You're in a bad spot in your marriage, you're in winter, you have a lot of resentment still, and you can't talk to your partner about problems. Therefore, you hold on to those issues until you get to counseling, and then you're having your counseling session, and then you blindside your partner. You bring up a complaint. You bring up something to the therapist you don't like about your partner or something they're doing wrong, and your partner is blindsided. They don't like it. They didn't see it coming. They get defensive. So don't blindside your partner. Talk with your spouse before your counseling appointment and get on the same page. And ask each other, what do you want to focus on today in counseling before you get there? And then you can say, well, there is one topic that I have some resentment around that I would like to address. It's about A, B, C, and D. That's one thing I would like to talk about today. What would you like to talk about today? And then you get on the same page. And then you go to the counseling session. And so you both know what the agenda is, what you would like to focus on. That's way better than not communicating with your partner beforehand and then showing up in session. And then you blindside them with a major complaint to your therapist, to the marriage therapist, and your partner never saw it coming. You do not want to do that. That's going to lead to defensiveness, anger, frustration. It's not going to go well. Number fourth mistake to avoid in marriage counseling is getting in a conflict in the session. And I see this happen all the time. And it's easy to happen because you're in winter, you have a lot of resentments, you're frustrated, but you have to learn to really control your feelings in session and outside of session. Because if you're in a counseling session and you get into a fight with your partner, your therapist is no longer doing therapy. Now they're just trying to help you deflood. And so ideally, your therapist would call a timeout so that whoever is flooded can take a break and get out of fight, flight, or freeze and then come back to the session. And if they take that break, you both need to leave for a few minutes so that the one partner is not left having one-on-one time with the therapist, which could throw off the alliance. But this happens a lot. And I see this with couples I work with. We'll be having a session and all of a sudden there's a blind side or an accusation. And now there's a fight. Now there's a blow up in session. That is unfortunate because now we can't do therapy anymore. Now we're not doing marriage counseling. Now we're just doing behavioral modification and we're just trying to get you out of fight, flight, or freeze, but we're no longer doing therapy. We're no longer doing deep work to resolve your resentments. And so as best as you can, try to have a commitment to yourself and to your partner that whatever happens in our marriage counseling session today, let's try to stay calm. And you can stay calm by not blindsiding each other, not blaming each other in the session. That's what leads to the fights. It's the blame and it's the accusations. And so instead, have this mindset when you go into therapy that I'm just going to focus on me, my growth areas, and I'm going to steer clear of blindsiding my partner. I'm going to steer clear of blaming my partner. I'm going to steer clear of accusing my partner. And instead, in therapy with my partner and our marriage therapist or coach, I'm just going to talk about how can I get better? How can I improve? First of all, your therapist will love you for having that attitude because it's very admirable. And second of all, it's going to prevent your partner from feeling attacked. Therefore, you're going to greatly decrease the chances of having a fight in session. Number 5, avoid the mistake of getting defensive with your therapist. Your therapist is doing their best to try to understand the situation, to try to understand your background, to try to understand all the dynamics that are going on in the relationship. The longer they work with you, the more accurate their interpretation is going to become. And so have some grace toward your therapist for the observations they make, the comments they make. It doesn't mean they're always going to be correct. But remember, they're there to try to help you. And so if your therapist makes suggestions, observations, they're trying to connect the dots, they're trying to trace lines between your current functioning and your past, whatever they say, try to reflect on it. Try to consider it. Try to mull it over. It may not be 100% correct. So look for the kernel of truth. But it's futile to get defensive with your therapist and start arguing with your therapist or to get frustrated or flustered with your therapist. They're there to help you. They're trying to have your back. And part of their job is to point out connections and to challenge you at times and highlight your blind spots. That's what they're there for. So don't get threatened. Don't get defensive. Listen to what they have to say. Number 6, the sixth mistake, is not taking notes during session and implementing what you're learning. When you're in session with your marriage therapist, you need to view it as you're in class. You're in class to learn how to have a better marriage. So you should be bringing with you a pad and a pencil or something to write with, so that as you're learning through the session, as you're having insights, as you're hearing feedback from the therapist, feedback from your partner, you're writing notes. You're writing down things you want to remember. And then after session, you're implementing, you're practicing, you're putting into play everything you're learning in session. That's going to quicken your progress. It's so frustrating as a therapist when you're working with a couple and they don't implement anything outside of session. That makes progress go way slower. So those are 6 mistakes to avoid in marriage counseling. Number 1, meeting alone with your therapist. Number 2, bringing your partner to your individual therapist. Number 3, blindsiding your partner in session. Number 4, getting in a conflict with your partner in session. Number 5, getting defensive with your therapist. And number 6, not taking notes in session and implementing the material outside of session. Thank you for listening to the Dr. Wyatt Show. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a review. I really appreciate the reviews. It shows me that this podcast is making an impact. And be sure to share this podcast episode. If you know of anyone else that you think this could benefit from, that is like it's benefited you, just hit the share button and send it to them. Also, if you're ready to level up your relationship, join my Marriage Saver Society. MSS is my leading digital course. In it, you can learn my skills and my tools for better conflict resolution, better emotional intimacy, how to resolve your resentments, all from the comfort of your living room at your own pace. To learn more, go to my website, drwyattfisher.com, and click on Marriage Saver Society. And remember, your marriage is alive. If you care for it and nurture it, it will grow. But if you deprive it and neglect it, it will wilt and die. The choice is up to you. Take care.